In the stifling heat of August, 30 years before the turn of the first millennium, a woman sits alone inside a sealed marble tomb in Alexandria. She wears the royal crown of the Ptolemies, draped in divine Egyptian silk, staring into the shadows. Outside, the war horns of Rome echo through the streets. Within moments, a single silent act will end her life, and with it, extinguish a 3,000-year-old lineage of living gods. How did a banished 19-year-old princess, left for dead in the desert, manipulate the most powerful generals on earth, spark global civil wars, and nearly forge the greatest empire the world had ever seen? To understand her ultimate downfall, we must go back to the moment she lost everything and use the iron fist of Rome as her personal weapon. In 48 before the Common Era, Egypt was tearing itself apart. Cleopatra VII had been stripped of her royal birthright, hunted down, and forced into exile by her own brother, Ptolemy XIII. She had no army, she had no crown, but she possessed an extraordinary, ruthless intellect in a gamble that would alter the course of human history. When Julius Caesar, the undisputed dictator of Rome, arrived in Alexandria pursuing his rival Pompey, he expected a wealthy client kingdom bowing at his feet. Instead, late one evening, a solitary attendant slipped into his private quarters carrying a heavy linen sack. Unrolled upon the floor before the most powerful man in the world, out stepped the exiled Queen of Egypt. Caesar was spellbound. Cleopatra was no mere figurehead. She was a brilliant strategist, fluent in 9 languages, and the first Ptolemaic monarch in 3 centuries to master Egyptian. She offered Caesar what he needed most, the golden treasury of the Nile to fund his reign. In return, Caesar gave her what she desperately required, the invincible legions of Rome. Within months, her treacherous brother was dead, drowned in the Nile under the crushing weight of his golden armor. Cleopatra was restored to her throne as Pharaoh, and when she gave birth to a boy named Caesarion, Little Caesar, the bloodlines of Rome's imperial dictator and Egypt's ancient sun god were bound together. She followed Caesar to Rome, residing in a grand palace across the Tiber, a living goddess walking among Roman senators who secretly loathe her growing influence. But power in Rome is written in blood. On the Ides of March 44 BC, Caesar fell beneath 23 stab wounds on the Senate floor. Her protector was dead. Her safety was gone. Her infant son's birthright was suddenly targeted by ruthless assassins. In the dead of night, Cleopatra fled Rome, slipping back across the Mediterranean into an uncertain dark. Rome descended into chaos. Out of the ashes of civil war rose 2 commanders, Caesar's cold, calculating adopted son, Octavian, and his legendary battle-hardened general, Mark Antony. Antony took control of the wealthy eastern provinces and summoned the Egyptian queen to Tarsus to answer for her allegiance. He expected a submissive vassal coming to beg for her kingdom. What he received was a masterclass in psychological warfare. Cleopatra sailed up the Cydnus River on a flagship with a gilded stern, purple silk sails, and silver oars beating in rhythm to flutes and harps. She reclined beneath a canopy of woven gold, arrayed as Aphrodite, surrounded by boys fanning her like cupids. Incense drifted across the water, hypnotizing the thousands standing along the shore. Mark Antony, a soldier of grand appetites, was utterly conquered before a single word was spoken. Their alliance was instantaneous, passionate, and catastrophic for the Roman Republic. Together they ruled the East from the lavish halls of Alexandria. Cleopatra bankrolled Antony's vast legions. Antony gifted Cleopatra Roman territories, eventually declaring her son Caesarion the legitimate heir of Julius Caesar, a direct, dangerous threat to Octavian's authority. Back in Rome, Octavian struck back with a devastating propaganda campaign. He painted Antony as a fallen leader, a great Roman soldier, brainwashed and enslaved by an exotic foreign queen. He convinced the Senate that Cleopatra was plotting to conquer Rome itself and shift the center of the world to Alexandria. In 31 BC, the storm broke. Rome declared war, not on Antony, but on Cleopatra. The Mediterranean held its breath as two colossal fleets clashed at the Battle of Actium off the coast of Greece. Hundreds of warships collided in a nightmare of fire, battering rams and drowning men. But as the tide turned against Antony's heavy fleet, Cleopatra made a desperate, terrifying decision. Seeing a break in the enemy line, she ordered her flagship to raise its purple sails and cut through the chaos, fleeing into the open ocean. Antony, seeing the woman he loved abandoning the fight, abandoned his men. He boarded a swift galley and chased after her, leaving his fleet, his reputation, and his empire to be devoured. The grand dream of an Egyptian-Roman empire had collapsed. By August of 30 BC, Octavian's army breached the walls of Alexandria. The trap was finally set. Tricked by a false rumor that Cleopatra had already committed suicide within her royal tomb, Mark Antony drew his gladius and drove it into his own chest. As he lay dying, he learned the terrible truth. She was still alive. He was carried to her mausoleum, where Cleopatra hauled his bleeding body through a high window using ropes. Antony drew his final breath in her arms. Now Cleopatra stood alone against the full might of Rome. Octavian took her prisoner, planning his ultimate triumph, to drag the glorious Pharaoh of Egypt through the streets of Rome in heavy golden chains, a public spectacle of total humiliation. Cleopatra realized her fate, but she refused to play her part in Octavian's victory. On August 12th, after enjoying a final magnificent feast, she sent a sealed letter to Octavian and locked herself inside her inner chambers with her most trusted maidservants. When Octavian's guards smashed through the heavy doors, they were too late. Cleopatra lay upon a couch of pure gold, adorned in full royal regalia, the divine crown resting upon her head. According to ancient accounts, an asp, a venomous Egyptian cobra, symbol of divine royalty, had been smuggled into the room hidden beneath a basket of figs. Octavian was furious, but the pharaoh had won her final battle. Following her death, Octavian ordered her young son Caesarion tracked down and executed, forever severing the lineage of Caesar and the Ptolemies. Egypt was annexed, reduced to a mere province of the new Roman Empire. The 3,000-year reign of the pharaohs, the living gods of the Nile, the builders of monuments that defied time itself, was brought to a permanent end. Yet in her final, defiant act of independence, Cleopatra denied Rome its greatest trophy, ensuring that she would never be remembered as a conquered king, but forever as the ultimate queen of the ancient world.